Hello, everybody. This is the Writing is Transformational Leadership interview series, and today we're going to be interviewing Nancy Kobel. And I'm Sofia Wren, your host. I'm a writer, editor, and I teach writing to people who want to write for their book or their business. If you have a calling to write and put your message out into the world, this is going to be a helpful interview for you because I understand that having a calling to write or having a calling to put yourself out there in a bigger way can be scary, it can be daunting, it can be confusing. You can be not sure what to do next. There's so many things that come up. So we're going to talk about that today to help you to express yourself more and show up more in the world. You've got technology here to help you. There's so many ways you can do it. Blogging, podcasting, writing a book, writing articles, putting stuff on LinkedIn, whatever it is that you want to do. It all involves you showing up as a leader, which is our topic today. So your writing will connect with other people, help them, serve them in some way. And then when you put it out there, the good stuff will start to happen. That's when you're going to start to feel the love. But from here to there can be a big leap. So we're going to dive into that today. And I've invited these experts here today, like Nancy, because this topic is so complex and we all have different ways of being a leader and we all have different ways of doing this. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. So I wanted to bring other voices in to learn alongside of you if you're watching. And this is going to be the theme of the summer writing group that will open up in a few weeks as well, Writing as Transformational Leadership. So watch with us to the very end of the interview. I'm also going to give you a free gift if you stick around to help you to have more fun writing emails, which is a great way to reach people. So if you want that, just stick around to the end. And now let's dive deeper with Nancy Kobel, who is an executive coach, team coach and facilitator with over 30 years experience in both the public and private sector. She works with her clients to master their own energy, develop their courage skills, and to continuously learn, grow, and develop into their best self and leader. She is a core guide for Chief,
Yeah.
Chief, a private membership network focused on connecting and supporting women executive leaders, and a certified Dare to Lead facilitator. Nancy has her MA in Instructional Design and a BS in Aerospace Engineering, spending the first portion of her career as a NASA engineer before moving into leadership and organizational development. That is so cool. So thank you so much for coming on our show.
Thank you for having me, Sophia. It's great to be here.
Yay. And I'm so excited because me and Nancy have known each other for like 10 years. I first met Nancy when I think it was maybe in the first couple of years of your business, and you had a class on owning your crown and you were wearing a tiara when I met you. So I love at first sight. I was like, oh my God, I love this. So it's fun that we've kept in touch and that I get to do a collaboration with you today. So yeah. So is there anything else you want to share about who you are before we jump in?
I think you covered it. I love that I forgot to wear my tiara, but I do have one.
You have an
I
energy
still have
you're
one.
on.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have my energy. I'm on. So yeah.
I feel it. So what got you motivated to teach other people about leadership? What got you into that?
Well, it's so funny. It's like when you follow your heart and you follow your path, you end up in places you never thought you would be if you're open to it. So when I was an engineer, I realized that engineering, it wasn't something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And in my ventures to get out of it, that's when I went and got my master's in instructional design. And I was still working as an engineer when I did it. And I am grateful because in my first role, my company created a position for me.
Wow.
And it was in, yeah. So I stayed with the company I was working with as an engineer. And we had an external facilitator, which was great, but it wasn't quite the right fit for our engineering managers. So when I graduated with my master's, the CEO was like, Nancy, you can do this.
Wow.
You get these guys. So that was my first step into facilitating management development workshops, was with engineers in my company. So it was internal. And I loved it. I'm like, okay, this is cool. And I was a pretty novice facilitator back then. This was a while ago. And we got acquired by a much larger company. And I loved the work I did. But within that larger company, I got a much greater exposure to leadership and organizational development and coaching. And I fell in love with coaching. Coaching was, it's just helping people get out of their own way so I could see their potential and help them remove the roadblocks so they really could get to where they wanted to go. And I just saw the value in it, not just at the senior leadership, but even lower levels of leadership and high potential employees. And so I fell in love with coaching and the value of that brought to leaders along with the leadership development. And so I continued on that and started my own company, got my professional coaching certification, and that's my focus is on leaders. So yeah.
I think that's so cool. And it's so, you know, and I've in my head, I'm hearing the voices of certain writers that I've worked with and how they've said that with writing, what's really hard is the people you know reading it, you know.
Yeah.
And so and sort of like your example of you got your master's and then it was the people that you know were your people that you were being a leader in front of now in this whole new role. And I think that's such a challenge for so many people to not like be like, okay, I'm going to go start my business over there, or I'm going to go right over there and I'm going to find other people who get it, but to really have both parts of their lives combine so that they can show up as a leader with the people that they know is like a whole other level. So that's so impressive that you did that. That's really cool. All right. So what got you? Okay, I asked you that one. Okay. What are some of the common fears of sharing your creativity with the world? There's so many people who want to write a book or an article or set themselves up as a leader who has this message to share and serve others. And what do you think keeps people from doing it?
A number of things. So one is fear. Also, perfectionism is another one. So we all have a bunch of friends up in our head that don't actually help us out. Our inner critic, our saboteurs get in the way of us truly leaning out and being courageous with our work or sharing ourselves and our creativity with the work. We hold back. What if they don't get it? We are hardwired for connection. And so if we put a piece of ourselves out there, that may cause us to be disconnected from those people that we want to be connected to, we may hold back from putting that out there. Yeah, that's a number one human need is human connection. And so that fear of disconnection, being vulnerable, can hold people back from putting their work out in the world. And it could cause them to freeze. They go into that fight or flight place, but they can freeze and just not.
Yeah, and so many, you know, when I hear people talk, you know, I think when you're a coach, you know, like me and you are, and you've seen a lot of people go through it and a lot of people speak on it, like just the way you're talking about it, it's universal. It's a universal theme. And although someone might say, well, I'm afraid because of this, this, and this, I'm a fraud, or I don't have the credentials or whatever, you know, when you hear it enough times from enough people, you realize like, it's not really about you personally, right?
Yeah, it's not about you, but right, we all have this up in our heads. We all judge ourselves, we judge others, and we judge events. It's the way our brain works. So it's neuroscience, and we can rewire our brain, but we have to actually be aware of what's going on. The other thing, too, I'd say is that gets in the way of people putting it out there is the ego. They focus on themselves versus being of service to others. If my writing, my story, what I'm sharing and getting out there, if I can unattach to the outcome and I can actually put it out there from this heart space in that intention of serving others, that somebody may get something out of it. And then I'm more easily able to do it. And that comes up with the first story I wrote because it was really hard to write it. It was a personal story. It was incredibly vulnerable. I didn't share those parts of myself with anybody, nevertheless, the world. And it was really scary. And I remember part of my intention of hitting that, yes, you can publish this, was if my story helps one person, it's worth it.
I love that. I've had a similar experience, and I'm all All about that one person, it kind of gets your mind to
Mm-hmm.
kind of quiet down because
Yeah.
you're not talking about the masses. That would be great. It'd be great. But even if it's just one person,
Mm-hmm.
you just move them a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
that story touches their heart, then yeah, it's all worth it, like you said.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, focusing on being of service. What are some other important muscles a person needs to be a leader?
So other important muscles. Well, one is based on what I just talked about was the mental muscle of
Mm,
quieting down your inner critic, of
yeah.
feeling the fear and doing it anyway, of recognizing the internal lies your brain might be telling you. Um, yeah, one is really truly that self awareness of when you're getting, and building that up. So, building your mental muscle up, which we all can do, um, building up your own self awareness and self
Mm,
reflection on, especially, I mean, because we're human. So, we all get these different emotions coming through, and judgment, or am I going to lose my job if I write this, or whatever that fear.
sure. Yeah.
I mean, the fears can go across the gamut, right? And depending upon what our needs are, our values are, um, so it's hard to encompass that, right? So we all
Yeah.
have them. So it's all, it's really, so building up your mental muscle is huge. One is moving into your energy. So getting energetically grounded in yourself,
Mm,
in your purpose, in your why, and getting clear on your intention of why are you writing this, or why do you want to get this out there? Is it
yeah.
self-serving? Is it observe? What's the purpose for your writing? So getting grounded and getting clear on what you want to do. Some other important muscles is just building the practice of writing without judgment. Just, I write morning pages. I just get up and I just write, and there's no judgment on what comes out. But sometimes I have no idea what to write. And I
Mm,
get out of the practice and then I get back in the practice. But just finding that space of just writing without judgment that nobody has to see. And I think that's really powerful if you keep a journal and you just
mhm.
get into the practice of writing. Uh, and people have judgments about journaling, but we always say, don't, just give it a try. Try it.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, don't like it. If you like it, great, continue it on. And there's just different ways to journal um, that are really powerful and helpful in getting into that, building that muscle of writing.
Yeah, like even if you're more of a talker, some people say I'm more of a talker.
Mm-hmm.
I say, well, you can just get an app on your phone and
That is very
transcribe it,
true.
but you still have to take that time to drop in and let yourself speak it all out loud, like really like
Yeah.
having some way to record your thoughts
Mm-hmm.
for you and not just with that judgmental side of like, is this
Mm-hmm.
good? But what would someone else think of this if they open up my
Mm-hmm.
journal? You really need to have that space for
Yeah.
yourself.
So I love how you brought that up because some people, some of us are verbal processors. So if you record it and it can go from voice to text, you've got something written there already, and then you can refine it. Because sometimes we get some really good downloads, something that's really coming through that we are passionate about. And if it's coming out verbally, record it and see if so you have something. And that's, yeah. So don't like to write, but like
Yeah.
to talk, try it that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
And I'm also kind of thinking too about, you know, um, taking your ideas seriously is kind of a muscle, you know?
Hmm. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people are sort of like, oh, well, I don't really know what I think about that, but you do actually have a thought about that. Or you,
Hmm.
you say something, you're like, okay, well, a million other people say that or something like that. But, to really believe that you have something inside of you and you
Hmm.
might need some time to shape it a little bit, but you've got something good in there,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. That your voice is valuable and what you bring is valuable. And I think building that muscle up is that realizing that you are the only you, and somebody may need to hear what you have to say. And coming out of your mouth or coming out of your experience is going to hit someone and they're going to get it versus somebody else that may say the exact same words but does not have your energy. They're not
Mm.
going to hear it. They're not going to trust it. But if you have that trust and that relationship, that they may be, and you don't know what your words are going to, how your words are going to hit somebody.
Yeah.
But that I've learned, it's a lot about the energy and less about, it's what energy are you bringing to your message. And sometimes it's risking it. It's just like taking the
Mm.
risk and leaning into the fear and saying it anyway and starting to build that muscle of courage in sharing your voice. I mean, and that's a hard one. And once you start doing it, you'll be able to lean in and do it more, because I can tell you probably 10 doing this with you, Sophia, would have never happened, right?
Mm.
10, 15 years ago. I mean, I joined Toastmasters many years ago to build up my table topics, like that impromptu speaking,
Oh, wow.
because I'm an introvert. So for all of you introverts out there, this is possible. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yay,
writing is
introvert energy.
yay, right? So but tuning in and leaning yay, introvert, yeah. But writing is also a great aspect for
Great for
introverts because
introverts.
there's a lot going on up here. And how do we get that out, right?
Yeah, and I think
And relate.
especially if you feel like different in some way, then the
Hmm.
courage is really, and again, your mind is telling you it's personal. Like,
Oh gosh, yes.
me, this isn't for me to say I'm too different. No
Hmm.
one's gonna want to hear this. I don't fit in. It's too
Hmm.
out of the box. Like, no one else is saying this. Like, that's where we're saying that, like, actually that's even more reason for
Yes.
you to try to work on getting your message out there, because like Nancy was saying, your particular voice and energy could be so needed because you
Hmm.
are different.
Yes. And if you're different and you're having that thought, I guarantee you there are other people that are having the similar thought and don't have the courage to speak up. And so they're also feeling very much alone. So the
Yeah.
moment you share your story, you share your voice, you share your energy, it is so powerful, especially when you are in. So you mentioned that I facilitate for chief, which is senior level women, and a lot of them are the onlys
Mm.
in their room, in their meetings. And so it's powerful when we come together with these groups of women, they realize they're not the only one in thinking or experiencing what they're experiencing in these other rooms where they
You're
are the
the only
only. And it's
woman.
very powerful because when we are the only, we think we are the only. And we're like, am I crazy? Is this, I'm thinking differently, or I'm seeing this differently than everybody else in the room. How do I have the courage even to speak up in those scenarios, right? Where I have a different perspective, I have a different view. How do I do that? And so to realize you're not the only one actually gives you courage to speak up, to impact change in a greater way.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you get people together so they can have that experience of like
Mm-hmm.
kind of that validation that comes from like, I'm not the only one going through this experience, and it
Mm-hmm.
gives you a lot of strength. Like, that's one way you
Mm-hmm.
can build courage. But even if you don't have the physical people there, that's the beauty of the things like the internet, is because like I kind
Mm-hmm.
of started deciding like 10 years ago in my writing journey that like the internet is a beautiful place for bringing weirdos together. So, whatever kind of weird I am, there will be more weird people. And it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely been validating when I have reached that one person, by saying something kind of out of the box and sharing my stories or my
Mm-hmm.
experience. Like, for instance, with grieving, I really felt like I'm not
Yes.
feeling good, but I'm going to talk about it because I felt like it was kind of countercultural to talk about grieving. And there
Mm-hmm.
might be someone else going through this that I'm kind of speaking for as well.
Yeah.
And that it gives you that courage to lay it out. And again, kind of take your ego out of it and kind of take
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. It's about you, but it's not about you. It's sort of
Right.
that kind of dance.
Yes, it's about you, but it's really the intention behind why you're sharing what you're sharing.
Exactly.
So sometimes the ego can come, that's where the self-awareness comes in. It's like, oh, yeah, let me step back and be of service.
Right.
Typically, when we're in the ego too, we might get a little more nervous, a little more
Mm.
fear, a little more anxious. in sharing. Doesn't mean that we're not anxious if we're really sharing something in a brave way and we don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Yeah.
But if we focus less on ourselves, we can actually, though it doesn't mean it's not hard. I'm going to just say that. It can still be hard.
Right. And that's why we're talking about it as building a muscle. We're not really talking about this as something you're just done forever.
Oh gosh, yes. This is consistently building a muscle. And as you build it in one area, there's always another area where you can lean into and be courageous and brave. And then you'll get good at that area. And then there'll be another area that shows up for you to lean in and grow in other areas.
You mean I'm never going to stop needing to be courageous?
No, nope. If you do figure it out, let me know. Well, you could, but then that's when you end up.
Yeah, I was telling Nancy before that, like, when I published my book, which is very vulnerable and sharing, you know, I kind of had in my head that I'm going to publish this book and then I'm going to be like set. I'm going to be just not caring about what anyone thinks of me ever again, because I'm just going to reach this pinnacle of completion and being courageous because I published this book about myself. But it doesn't work like that at all. No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't. And I love how you laugh then too. You're like, oh, that's so funny. Because it's I think I'm not alone in thinking that way, but we kind of think like, I have to get to this point of I publish this article or I publish this thing, and then I'm like, or even I'm getting a degree or I'm getting a certification, and then I'm done. I reached it.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And the reason why I'm laughing is because I did have that thought prior also. It's
You
like,
did
okay,
too.
when XYZ happens, it'll all be good. Everything will be great. And then, yeah. And I was
Life
schooled
continues.
really well.
We keep on living. We keep on.
Yeah.
Keep on
New
living.
experiences, new lessons, new, yeah.
Yeah, and it's really a good thing, but you know, I mean, yeah, it's really a good thing. But where do you think writing intersects with leadership or overlaps?
Well, I think part of it, it's part of what we're sharing here, is writing is when we actually can convey how even our stories of leadership. So if you're a leader and you want to convey experiences that have worked, or even experiences that have not worked, and lessons learned of how things can go differently. I mean, we're living in a time of major change. And so how do we show up as a leader? How do we learn from when we fall down and get back up and go back in? So I think sharing our stories, writing is a huge part. And that's one part. But the other part as a leader with writing is that time for self-reflection.
Yes.
And if we want to grow as a leader, we have to take a step back and become truly showing up as a leader, explore our own triggers, explore our own, how did that meeting go? Or how did that presentation go? Or how did that project go? What worked? How did I show up? How can I show up differently in the future? And spending that time on some self-reflection of where do I need to lean in differently? Where do I need to grow? Or where does my team need to grow? How can I help, them perform better? What's my role in helping them develop into the leaders I need and want them to be? So I think that time with writing, that self-reflection, that assessing your team, giving good feedback that's effective, that's not demoralizing, that's not going to knock them down, but actually going to help them become better in whatever they're doing. I think that's a huge role in this too, is that leaders really need that time for reflection and self-awareness of how they're showing up and how they're impacting those that they interact with.
I think that's great. And I know that for myself, that's been really life-changing to take time to do like a weekly review, or even just a review of how the day went or how project went. It's so easy to just go on to the next thing. But when you do take a little bit more time to kind of digest, I think it's really the cure to kind of the magic bullet mindset of like, I need this certification, or I need this thing, I need this, other person to tell me how to be a leader, when it's more about finding your own way to do it in where you are with what you're working on, and kind of starting with what just happened in the last 2 weeks or something like that can be a really powerful way to just orient yourself for the next 2 weeks, and it's such a simple thing,
Yeah.
but it's super powerful, especially if you do it regularly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And finally, what, actually, it's not finally, I'm going to ask you another question too, but how does empathy tie in with leadership, do you think?
Oh, empathy is very important and very powerful in leadership. One is it gives us the perspective taking, basically, to actually connect with another person and not judge their experience or their views, but to have empathy towards whatever they're experiencing, and recognizing, even though that might not be my experience, it does not devalue their experience. And I need it to be, as a leader, to be non-judgmental, to get curious, to be able to have an open dialogue with that individual, or team. And empathy is so powerful because there's so much shame. Empathy is the antidote to shame. And if we truly want to, if we truly want to show up as leaders and show up and make the changes we need to make or want to make, empathy is incredibly important, not only towards others, but also towards ourselves. So perspective taking are key elements of empathy.
I didn't even think about empathy for yourself, but yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think we all need to remember that a lot. Yeah. And going off of that, okay, now it's the final question. So, in what ways are you really excited to serve others right now?
Well, I love serving others. One-on-one coaching is one avenue. I'm currently facilitating a Dare to Lead workshop. So I love doing that. We teach the 4 skill sets of courage in that. I have some opportunities for developing teams, whether through workshops or retreats, which is super fun when you can get a team together that wants to develop courage building skills, or just develop better as a team and to be able to work better together as a team. I love doing that also. And then the other thing too is, like, in the fall, like mental fitness. I want to work on that also, helping a group that wants to improve their own mental fitness.
Wow. That sounds so cool. Awesome. I'm going to put all of your information in the YouTube description when this goes on YouTube, and on my blog as well when I have it on there. So if you guys want to look up Nancy Kobel and see all the amazing things that she's doing, this has been such a good talk. So thank you again for being here. And if anyone's interested, I'm a big proponent of email lists. I think a lot of people have them or thinking about having one, and they just don't really email very much, or they don't see it as friendly because it's like a hard thing to do. But if you'd like to have more fun writing emails and connecting with people who are interested in what you have to say and what you're doing, then leave a comment below this video if you're on Facebook, and I'll send you the free class on how to have fun writing emails. And if you're on YouTube, I'll put the link in the description as well. As my thank you for sticking around to the end. Thanks, guys. Anybody watching the replay. And once again, thank you so much, Nancy. I hope you have a great day.